High above the peaks of Middle-earth, where the wings cut sharp and the skies are endless, there flew the mightiest of all winged beings, the Eagles of Manwë. They were not mere creatures of feather and bone, but messengers of the divine, guardians of the free peoples, and witnesses to the turning of the world's great ages. Their wings carried not only strength, but also purpose, for in their flight was bound the will of the Elder King himself. Before we journey further into the story, if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, it would help us bring more tales from Arda to life. Now, let's return to the story. From the earliest shaping of Arda, when the Valar descended into the world to prepare it for the coming of the children of Ilúvatar, the eagles were appointed as watchers. Manwë, High King of Arda and Lord of the Winds, saw fit to establish in them his eyes across the vast lands below. Where other creatures remained bound to the earth or sea, the eagles alone were given the freedom of the skies, soaring high above mountain ranges and deep valleys alike. Their task was not simply to bear messages, but to serve as heralds of justice, reminders of the higher powers that lingered still in the affairs of Middle-earth. These were no ordinary birds, but spirits of might, akin to the Maiar, clothed in feathered form. Their grandeur exceeded the imaginings of mortals, and their voices, when raised, could be as piercing as trumpets of war or as solemn as the winds before a storm. The Silmarillion recalls them first in the wars against Morgoth in the Elder Days, when their eyes pierced through smoke and shadow to uncover the movements of the enemy. From the hidden fastness of Thangorodrim to the encircling mountains of Beleriand, they were the spies of the Valar, bringing tidings and striking with sudden, terrible force. Thorondor, mightiest of them all, was said to have wings spanning 30 fathoms, vast enough to darken the sun. His talons tore through the iron helm of Morgoth himself, marking the dark enemy with wounds that would never heal. The chronicles tell us that when Fingon, prince of the Noldor, dared a desperate rescue of his kinsman Maedhros, it was Thorondor who bore the elf down from the black precipices of Thangorodrim. In such moments, the eagles stood not only as messengers, but as saviors, their presence altering the fate of nations. Yet their loyalty was not to elves nor men, but to the higher order set by Manwë. They did not descend at every plea, nor could their aid be summoned lightly. Their rare interventions carried weight, reminding all that the Valar themselves still looked upon the struggles of Middle-earth, though from afar. They appeared when necessity was greatest, when ruin threatened to overwhelm, or when the designs of the powers demanded their hand. In the long history of the Elder Days, their role was unceasing. They brought tidings from the farthest reaches of the world to Tenochtitlan, the holy mountain of Manwë. They circled above Gondolin, the hidden city, bearing secret watch against Morgoth's spies. And in the climactic War of Wrath, when the hosts of the Valar marched against Angband, it was the eagles in their thousands who joined the battle, descending upon the dragons of Morgoth in the skies above. It was their valor that broke the backs of the winged serpents, sealing the downfall of the dark enemy once and for all. But their story does not end with the Elder Days. Across the Second and Third Ages, the eagles remained a force both mysterious and mighty, their presence a thread that bound the great events of the world together. Always they were the watchers, the messengers, and at times the saviors. And though their numbers were few, their deeds resounded through the long ages of Middle-earth, remembered in song and legend as the servants of Manwë, the Great Eagles of Arda. In the dawn of the Second Age, after the breaking of Beleriand and the defeat of Morgoth, the eagles endured. Much of their glory was remembered in the songs of the elves, yet their presence remained tangible in the skies of the reshaped world. When the Valar broke the northern strongholds and drowned much of the ancient lands, the eagles did not depart with the hosts of Aman. Instead, they remained, their wings crossing the new seas and soaring over the rising kingdoms of men. Their watch was unbroken, for the shadow of Morgoth, though defeated, had not vanished entirely. His servant, Sauron, lingered still, and in the unfolding centuries, the eagles bore witness to his growing malice. In those early centuries, the eagles watched the rise of Númenor, the great island kingdom gifted to the Edain by the Valar. Though the Númenorians prospered, their hearts remained bound to the sea, and their eyes turned ever westward towards the forbidden shores of Aman. The eagles themselves are not recorded as dwelling upon Númenor, yet their absence was telling, for upon the Menaltarma, the sacred mountain in the heart of the island, the Númenorians raised their prayers to Ilúvatar under open sky, and it was said that no bird dared to fly across that hallowed summit. Only the eagles of Manwë were permitted to circle there, a reminder of the watchful gaze of the elder king. They did not descend to speak nor intervene, but their presence above the holy mountain was a sign that the Valar still heeded the worship of the faithful. As Númenor descended into pride and arrogance, the eagle's watch became ever more significant. When the kings of men forsook the reverence of Ilúvatar and began to turn against the Valar, the sight of the eagles above the Menaltarma grew rare. In the later days, when Sauron had ensnared the Númenorian court and driven them to rebellion, the eagles no longer appeared in their skies. Their absence was a judgment, a silent declaration that the blessing of the Valar had been withdrawn. And when Ar-Pharazôn led his fleet westward in the folly of open war against Aman, no eagle rose to meet him, for the fate of Númenor had already been sealed. But in Middle-earth itself, far from the doom of the great island, the eagles still carried out their charge. They ranged across the mountain ranges, from the misty mountains to the arid Luin, and their eyes remained upon the movements of Sauron as he gathered strength once again. Though they did not contend with him directly in those centuries, their role as messengers endured. Tidings of his rise and the forging of his dominion in Mordor were not unknown to the wise, for the skies had their watchers, and the servants of Manwë bore word of what they saw. When the great alliance of elves and men was forged in the last alliance of the Second Age, the eagles once more took to the field. Though their deeds in that war are less detailed than their mighty battles of the First Age, it is known that they descended upon Sauron's creatures, striking from the air against the hosts that issued out of Mordor. Their presence among the free peoples at the siege of Barad-dûr was a testament that the Valar had not utterly abandoned Middle-earth, even though the struggle was to be endured by elves and men alone. The eagles bore witness to that long war, to the defeat of Sauron, and to the cutting of the One Ring from his hand. Yet even in that moment of triumph, they knew, as all did, that Sauron was not destroyed, but only diminished. Thus, as the Second Age closed and the Third began, the eagles remained vigilant. Their purpose endured, for the shadow would rise again, and their wings would once more cast judgment upon the darkened lands.
As the Third Age unfolded, the eagles' vigilance did not wane. Their domains were chiefly the high places of Middle-earth, the peaks of the misty mountains, the northern edges of the White Mountains, and the hidden fastnesses where men and elves dared not tread. Here they remained watchers and messengers, observing the movements of Sauron as his shadow grew once more in Mordor, and occasionally intervening when the balance of life and hope tipped toward ruin. It is in these centuries that the eagles' interactions with the free peoples became most recorded and vivid. In the tales of dwarves and elves, their sudden appearances were both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The eagles did not speak the languages of men and elves freely, but their understanding of the affairs of Middle-earth was profound. They carried messages across vast distances, often bridging the great gaps between isolated kingdoms or bearing tidings from one embattled refuge to another. Their interventions were always timely, though rare, appearing only when necessity and fate intersected. One of the most celebrated of their deeds was during the journey of Thorin Oakenshield and the company of dwarves to reclaim Erebor. As recorded in the annals of the Red Book, the company was beset by wargs and goblins, trapped in the deep gorges and forests of the misty mountains. At the hour of utmost peril, the eagles descended like thunder from the heights. Their wings stirred mighty gusts, scattering the dark forces, and their talons struck with unmatched precision. Thorin himself acknowledged their might, understanding that without the intervention of these servants of Manwë, all would have been lost in the shadows of the mountains. Later, during the War of the Ring, the eagles' role became even more critical. Though they did not fight as freely as the armies of men and elves, they appeared at crucial moments to aid those guided by courage and righteousness. The most famous of these interventions was the rescue of Frodo and Sam from the erupting Mount Doom. As the mountains shattered and the earth trembled beneath Sauron's final wrath, the eagles descended, lifting the ring-bearer and his faithful companion from the heart of destruction. In this act, they preserved not only lives, but the culmination of a history that had spanned the ages. The eagles were also witnesses to the climactic battle of the Pelennor Fields. Circling above Minas Tirith, they attacked fell creatures and beasts, providing crucial support to the armies of men. Their presence was a visible sign of hope, a reminder that the powers beyond the mortal plane still observe the events of Middle-earth, and that the free peoples were never entirely alone in their struggle against darkness. Yet the eagles were not mere instruments of war. They remained symbols of vigilance, wisdom, and the enduring connection between Arda and the divine will of the Valar. Their majestic flights across sky and mountain reminded all who beheld them that the world is vast, its forces of good and evil intertwined, and that even in the darkest hours, there exist guardians whose strength and purpose transcend the temporal concerns of men, elves, and dwarves. In the aftermath of the War of the Ring, as the dominion of men began in earnest, the eagles receded once more into their high places. They were seen less frequently, their deeds recorded in song and memory rather than direct intervention. Yet their presence remained a constant, an unbroken thread linking the First Age to the closing of the Third, and beyond into the legends that endure in the stories of Arda. The Eagles of Manwë, though fewer in number as the ages passed, became enduring symbols of vigilance, wisdom, and the invisible hand of providence in Middle-earth. They remind us that not all forces shaping the world are seen or understood by mortals. Some act quietly, observing and intervening only when the balance of life itself hangs in jeopardy. Throughout the histories of elves, men, and dwarves, the eagle's presence was a constant, a silent testament to the enduring will of the Valar and the unseen guardianship of the world's higher powers. Their significance was not measured merely in deeds of rescue or battle, though these were many. Rather, the eagles embody a principle central to Tolkien's mythos, that some forces operate on a plane above the everyday struggles of Middle-earth, guiding and watching, yet respecting the autonomy of its peoples. They are not instruments to be summoned at whim. They are custodians, appearing when necessity aligns with the greater design of Arda. This distinction underscores the narrative philosophy that Tolkien wove throughout his legendarium. Heroes are defined not solely by divine intervention, but by courage, choice, and perseverance, even when help comes from the skies above. In reflecting on the First Age, it is clear that the Eagles were both agents and witnesses. They intervened decisively during the wars against Morgoth, saving lives and altering the course of history through their might and intelligence. In the Second Age, they remained watchers of the growing shadow of Sauron, observing the rise and fall of Numenor and bearing silent witness to the struggles of elves and men. By the Third Age, their appearances were rare but crucial, preserving lives and hope in moments that would otherwise have ended in despair. Yet perhaps the most compelling aspect of the Eagles is their symbolism. They represent a bridge between the mortal and the divine, the seen and the unseen. In every age, their wings have carried not just individuals, but the weight of history itself, traversing time and space in service of a higher purpose. When we consider the rescue of Frodo and Sam from Mount Doom, or the support they lent to Thorin's company, we recognize a recurring motif, that help often comes from unexpected quarters, and that vigilance, courage, and patience are rewarded in ways beyond immediate comprehension. In literature and legend, the Eagles of Manwë occupy a space uniquely their own. They are neither elves nor men, nor simple beasts, yet their influence is felt across the lives of all races in Middle-earth. They are reminders of a world where good and evil are measured not solely by force of arms, but by the moral and spiritual vigilance that watches over creation. Even as the Third Age waned and the dominion of men grew in earnest, the memory of the Eagles endured in song, story, and the collective consciousness of Middle-earth's peoples. Thus, as we look across the sweeping ages of Tolkien's world, the Eagles of Manwë remain steadfast and eternal, a symbol of hope, guardianship, and the unseen hand that guides history toward balance. They are more than winged creatures. They are messengers, watchers, and a living testament to the enduring interplay of fate, courage, and divine oversight in the shaping of Middle-earth. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.